Is it going to start? Hey, Survivor
Now
Specialists, Phil and Alexa are back. That took forever to start, guys. We've been sitting here for 4 minutes waiting for it to start, I swear. We got our episodes 4 through 6 of Survivor Panama to recap tonight. I'm telling you, I'm going to talk about one theory that I have that I think makes so much sense that I was pitching to Alexa last night at like 1 a.m. her time, and she totally wasn't buying it. I even put it in the description. That's how cool I feel about this. Like, I really, really believe in this. And we're going to talk about 4 through 6. We're going to talk about probably one of my least favorite tribals ever. Those poor 4 guys felt so bad, feel so bad every time. We're going to talk about Shane being super crazy, Shane getting a cigarette, Bobdawg and Bruce drinking, Courtney being crazy, Danielle being crazy, Aris being completely arrogant as hell. I got so much to talk about. I'll let you speak, Alexa.
So I was about to say, is it even worth doing this podcast? Because you just said all this. I mean, we're kind of good right now. But I'm gonna go out and say, where is Aris arrogant and where is Danielle crazy?
Oh.
Courtney is absolutely nuts, but half the things she says in this 3-episode span are completely right. Shane is bananas. Shane sends. Someone made a comment about how I say bananas too much, so now I'm totally overthinking it. So whoever said that, I'm adding a check. I've already said bananas. We've been talking for 5 minutes. Shane spends the entire episode, the entire Bobdawg boot episode, and he's like, we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of Bobby. We got to get rid of Bobby. And Aris is like, let's get rid of Bruce. And then he says, no, we got to get rid of Bobby. It's all about getting rid of Bobby. And then the next episode is yelling at Danielle because she made a horrifying mistake by voting out Bobby. It was all his idea. Danielle and Courtney, say what you will about them, but they were completely rational in fighting back on him and making the decisions that they made.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, he's the one who said Bobdawg's going to flip once we hit the merge, and then he, swears on his kid or whatever he did.
Good call, yeah.
The one thing I have to call out on all of this is Aris's arrogance is so apparent. I don't know who the hell has won this game. Who the hell has won this game calling people out as much as Aris calls people out? I don't think I've ever seen somebody.
But his tribe's not doing anything. He's the only person doing anything.
The thing is, if he's
Bruce
not
is building
part
a
of the
rock garden.
if he's not part of the Kasaya 6, he has no shot. If he's he's not being arrogant. He's being a leader. There's no leadership anywhere on this tribe, and that tribe would be nowhere if it wasn't for him. No, and that's fine.
And he wouldn't be acting like that, quote unquote, because I don't think he's being arrogant if he wasn't in a necessary leadership position.
I disagree, though. The part with Bruce, he was being arrogant towards Bruce. There's no reason for him to do
that is so no, not at all.
He didn't have to say it to Bruce. You have to let things go. And I get that it's the crazy tribe, but Bruce is at least somewhat level-headed. He lives in his own little world, but he's so much more level-headed. You can't sit there and call out Bruce in front of everybody, who is somebody who takes great pride in being Bruce. So to call him out like that, the fact that it didn't backfire is because he's part of the Kasaya 6.
No, that wasn't calling out. That was Bruce building a freaking rock garden when he could have been doing anything else. I know that's like Bruce takes a lot of pride in that, but Courtney takes a lot of pride in her yoga. Shane takes a lot of pride in his BlackBerry and sitting on his stool that's only his. Why does Bruce get a free pass? Because he's proud of his rock garden? That's ridiculous.
No. You see, what I'm saying is Aris is being arrogant and thinking he can talk to all of them the same. He's not treating them differently, and I'm glad Bruce got mad at Aris because I think it woke Aris up a little bit because even I think it's the next episode where he's saying, I don't want to work with Shane. Shane is too much. And I think that's the biggest problem with all of this is that, like, Aris is talking to everybody as if they're the exact same person, as if they'll listen to every single thing he says. He's not treating them differently at all. He's treating them all as if he has to micromanage everything they're doing.
Because he does.
Somebody like Bruce, you can't do that. You have to let him build his damn rock garden and do what he's doing.
Why do they have to let him do that?
Because when Bruce comes back and sits down and says, guys, I am here. And they're like, oh, well, the fire, we're having a hard time with it. And Bruce says, go get wood. And then Aris instantly calls him out and like yells at him about making his rock art. You don't yell at another person. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He spoke to him.
No, he yelled at him.
He spoke to him in front of the group, and maybe his tone came off as arrogant, and that's why you're so upset about it. But I completely disagree with that.
Thank you for saying arrogant. Thank you for, there we go. Full circle.
I said you said Sean is arrogant.
You said his tone came off as arrogant.
Coming off as arrogant and being arrogant are two completely different things. And
not when it's Survivor, because in Survivor, everybody we've interviewed has said perception is reality, and if everybody else is perceiving you to be arrogant,
no one on his tribe has an issue with it. No one has called ours out about it.
Bruce did call him out. That's what I'm saying. I'm only bringing up the Bruce one because Bruce called him out. The others did not call him out because the others are so insane. Every time Aris says something to Shane, Shane turns around and screams at Courtney. Courtney did nothing wrong, and Shane turns around and screams at Courtney. What I'm saying is he's treating everybody the same, and it doesn't bite him in the butt this season because he goes deep in this game with this insane alliance.
But what I'm saying is he wouldn't be acting this way if he was on any other tribe. They need a leader.
No,
that's where we disagree. That's where I
agree with you that they need a leader, and I think Aris did a good job of stepping in the leader role, and that's why he ultimately wins this game. That's why he ultimately wins. That's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like, he does it. This is where you see moments of Aris doing and saying things where you're like, he's the only winner who's gotten away with those things. It's the same.
I completely disagree. Same
way Tony's the only one who ever got away with what he got away with and won the game. Aris got away with what he got away with because this tribe was just so crazy. And this is a compliment to Aris.
What did he get away with? Making a couple snide comments because his tribe wasn't working hard?
Calling people out in front of the entire tribe. He did it to Bruce. He did it to Melinda and Sari. He calls people out in front of everybody, and that's not a smart way to play this game.
The Melinda and Sari thing was a mistake. You don't call out Bruce in front of everyone. You pull Bruce aside and you say, Bruce, you need to start playing, but you don't call him out in front of everybody. He's playing a Shane game, but he's not crazy like Shane. Instead, he comes across. He's not playing a Shane. No, he's not.
Shane does the same thing that Aris does. Calls people out in front of everyone.
You calls people out. This happened twice.
It happened more. I wrote down more. I'm gonna look for it because I have more. But anyway, this all leads to my insane theory. But
go ahead, please.
Do you want me to do this because Alexa doesn't think this makes sense? But
it doesn't make sense. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway. Yeah, this whole thing stems from the Dan boot. I feel like because Dan goes home where he goes home, we have seen so few people from Panama return. And here's why. And let me explain it, Alexa. I know what your rebuttal is, and I'll give you plenty of time, but I need to just get this out there. I feel like because Dan went home when Dan went home at this Final 10 boot, you now go into the merge with just Terry as the old guy, but Terry is such a competitive dude that nobody on the other side will ever work with Terry because even though he might be the only rational person, they all just hate him because he's so competitive. He's so good at it. They almost are like jealous of him and they don't want Terry to be around. Somebody like Dan, you saw how much his tribe respected him. And now you hit the merge without Dan. And Dan is somebody I honestly believe that could have either pulled people to say, guys, you got to get rid of Shane before you get rid of me out of a respect thing, or he might have even been able to pull Shane and Bruce over because Shane is playing a game with people he hates, and somebody like Dan might be able to pull him back, whereas Terry was never going to pull Shane in. So my whole thing is, I think the reason we only saw Sari and then Danielle, which blows my mind that out of this crazy, crazy good cast, this is a phenomenal cast. Out of this crazy cast, we've only seen Sari and Danielle until we go all the way to season 27 and see Aris. I think the reason that we saw so few is because once we hit that merge point, everybody on that beach is such a huge personality minus Nick, and he's gone. Spoilers, he's gone first anyway. So I'm talking that whole jury. Everybody is such a big personality that I honestly believe that casting might have had a tough time deciding who they wanted the most to come back because they all worked so well together. And had somebody like Dan been there, I honestly believe like he would have put a calm into this whole ridiculous post-merge of not even crazy moves, just crazy people. I feel like he would have put a calm in there that would have separated somebody like Shane from somebody like Courtney. And like somebody like Sari obviously was going to come back. So that was a no-brainer. But the fact that Danielle is the second person to return from this cast when you have Shane, Courtney, Terry, Austin, who I think is a great, great personality on this season. There's so many there. And I feel like Dan could have been the person who kind of played the middle ground of like calm versus crazy. and helped people separate themselves. I don't know. It's a crazy thing. It might not make any sense.
So it doesn't kind of make sense to me, which is why I have two questions to try to make myself understand it. First question is, if Dan doesn't go home, who in your theory, who goes home instead of Dan? Spoiler alert, Dan goes home episode 6.
Well, everybody watched episode 6.
I know, I'm trying to pretend this is chronological.
Okay, yeah. So if Dan doesn't go home in episode, what I'm saying is, let's say that Dan and Sally aren't complete. Let's say the NASA engineer knows how to do a puzzle. Okay, let's say astronaut Dan knows how to do a puzzle. Okay, if he finishes that puzzle and Kasaya goes, do we see Shane go? I don't know. Do we see Bruce go? I don't know. But I almost feel like had something like that happened, where let's say Bruce goes at final 11, let's say Kasaya loses and Bruce goes at final 11. Now you have Dan, who's actually a relevant part. Bruce, for what he is, he's not that big of a part of this season. Dan, well, probably because of how it ends, but Dan is very big in that pre-merge. And if we go in with like a 5-5, you have more rooting interests. The problem was the only person that you really had to root for after Dan goes, because that tribe just gets decimated, is Terry. You can root for Suri, but Suri is still a part of the axis of evil. So, like, it's hard to really root for somebody. And I feel like had Dan stayed, you have more of a rooting interest from that side, so at least you're rooting for the underdogs a little bit. Whereas really you're not rooting for anybody but Terry after this, and everybody else is just kind of like a maniac who's there with him.
I was kind of rooting for Austin. But okay, so I get where you're coming from on that, but why? I don't understand how Dan making the merge computes to more people returning.
Because I think that what the problem was, I think after the season ended, casting sat there and said, oh my God, that cast was insane. And I honestly believe that by the time, like, so everybody's sitting there going, this cast is insane. Obviously, Suri is going to come back for fans versus favorites. The fact that Terry didn't blows my mind. But I feel like Terry takes a little bit of a hit because Terry had nobody to bond with after the game got moving. And casting is sitting there saying to themselves, okay, what's Terry going to do? Come out and win all the challenges again? Like, you don't see Terry play a social game after this. And that's why it was such a big deal in Second Chances when he's talking about, I'm playing the social game. I'm playing the social game. I'm starting to learn it. I think Dan helps Terry actually come back for fans versus favorites or for a heroes versus villains. I think that he helps you differentiate between the Kasaya 6, who by the time Nick goes and it's completely apparent it's just going to be 6-on-3, once that happens, you sit there and say, it's the Kasaya 6 versus Terry. It's not Shane versus Terry. It's not Courtney versus Terry. And I feel like had Dan stayed, you have like these little this versus that. I don't know. It's a crazy, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I honestly just don't see how it connects.
Yeah,
but you
that's
do.
fine.
You're very passionate about it, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just hope there's going to be one person out there who believes in me. Also, I'm looking at the chat over here.
Yeah, Someone said, "Can you feel the love?" Austin is awesome. People stop calling him boring. Austin is awesome.
Austin is the furthest thing from boring. Austin, to me, he's another one that's completely forgotten because Dan went home. Do you see kind of like what I'm saying here? Because, like, had you gone in 5 versus 5, I
don't think Dan makes Austin more exciting.
He doesn't necessarily make Austin more exciting, but I feel like he gives Austin more of a chance to actually go deeper in the game, which makes people care more about Austin than, oh, he just finished 9th or 8th or 7th, whatever the hell he finishes. I honestly forget. But it gives him more that he can actually work with, because no matter what happened, Nick was probably going to go. Nick or Aris would have went at this merge had Dan stayed in and Kasaya lost that first challenge, which is what's crazy.
The entire live chat is talking about your conspiracy theories.
That's totally fine. That's what I want this to be about.
No, this is good. It's, you want to have theories. This is good, people.
I just think that it's harebrained and it's all over, and it's something we could obviously never prove. But I feel like in this pre-merge, who are your money characters? You have Shane, who's a money character, Suri, who's a money character, Terry's a money character. And I honestly feel like Dan, he might not be number 4, because Courtney's there and all of that, but Courtney's a reaction of Shane. Courtney's nowhere near as good of TV without Shane. She needs, because otherwise she's just too out there. You need that person who's calling her out every 5 seconds.
No, she's still pretty because she's out there.
No, I agree with that.
When she was like doing her hard on the turtle and stuff. Her and Shane, they're so good because they're so good together.
Yes, exactly.
Or bad together.
So yes, they're terrible people to each other. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I just honestly think like Dan was one of the best stories of the pre-merge. And for him to go, you lose him and you also lose Lamina in one quick swipe. Mm-hmm. And I think that because it became so easy for Kasaya, it became a little bit harder for them to get brought back. One, because I think that everybody in production probably had their own favorites, aside from Suri, who was the clear front runner. Mm-hmm. And I also think that production didn't know if any of them actually knew how to play the game. So they're worried trying to bring them back for heroes versus villains, when it's like, well, we want people, obviously coach, but you don't want 20 coaches running around the island. You want people who can play the game. Did Shane prove he can play the game? No, not really. Courtney didn't really prove she could play the game because they all just latched onto each other until they just decimate each other.
Okay, this is gaining more traction. Kind of.
Kind of.
I'm more interested than I was when you texted me last night.
Well, yeah, because I'm texting you. I'm trying not to text you a novel.
Also, everyone here, guys, Austin is not forgettable. Like, maybe it's because Panama is one of my favorite seasons, but really, Austin is great. And I was never a Dan fan. It's not that I wasn't a fan of his. I just never really understood the hype. I still don't understand the massive love, but he has a really great story, and his boot is absolutely heartbreaking. It's
terrible. It's terrible. I think it's one of the best and worst boots all wrapped in one, because we'd never seen anything like that, where 4 people were sitting there before the merge who all genuinely liked each other. I mean, these 4 guys all seriously had such a tight bond. They would have never voted for each other had they hit the merge. So no matter what, like now the other problem is too, you go into this merge and Sally is not with those guys at all because she was so ostracized anyway. She's almost playing like a Candace from Heroes versus Villains, where it's like, why the hell should I be allied with you guys? You guys did nothing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Sally's another one. She's surprising me this time. This is my 3rd time watching Panama. And I remember the second time I found myself being like, man, I really hope Dan, Austin, and Terry like run this thing. Like they're the heroes of this season. Like, man, I hope they run this. This time around, I'm really liking Sally. And I always like had forgotten about her aside from Dalton Ross loving her socks. But she's actually a pretty damn good player who just ends up dealt the wrong hand and, stuck in the ultimate bromance.
Yeah. And she's, like you said, she is stuck in the ultimate bromance. She's just, and then for Kasaya to put her on exile was extremely smart of them. Like she was just always the underdog. And I love that story, but she never gave up. She was always like trying to find her way in. And like you said, she got stuck in a tribe of 4 guys who were really, really into each other.
Wow. Way to put that. Yes.
I am not going to change it.
There you go. Maybe Austin and Nick. I don't know about Terry and Dan, but moving on. So what with Kasaya, you have this absolute insanity, and you have Bobdawg and Bruce taking the wine. And what I love about Bobdawg and Aris, here's a great perspective on how much I was talking about how Aris is so arrogant for a winner, but here's a great perspective on how well Aris played this game. Love your roommate. Tell your roommate I said hello. I know you keep trying to move the camera. It totally doesn't matter. I mean, whatever. I think
we're here.
Anyway, so what I love about this is Bobdawg could not separate the game from his personal feelings. And Aris does it so well. When Bobdawg leaves, he's like, I'm glad that I'm out of there. Like, I hate those people. They're the worst. Like, he's ripping them apart. He takes the wine and is drinking it, not so much because they took his spot in the shelter, because he doesn't like them. That's really what it comes down to.
No, because so Courtney calls him out for drinking the wine, and she goes, how do you feel about it? And he goes, I feel swell about it.
He's like, I'm mad I took your wine. I'm mad I took your wine. I'm not mad I took your wine. I'm mad I took the wine from everybody else. It's great.
Yeah. Which makes no sense because he doesn't like anybody else. But I get what he's trying to say.
He's just trying to rub it in Courtney's face that he drank the wine because he's just irritated. And had Bobdawg hung around, he would have jumped ship.
Oh, absolutely. Shane was
100%.
1,000% right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shane's not a bad player. He just needs cigarettes.
Yes. And speaking of, this is kind of like how Judd just stumbled upon that cigar at the reward. Mm-hmm. Shane gets a cigarette, and that was like a poster child for kids don't do drugs. Like his eyes were so bloodshot. He looked crazed.
It was so funny. I love, and he's
amazing.
like, what his exact quote was, this shows me how devastating nicotine is to the body entirely.
I wrote it down too.
It's amazing.
As he's like shaking with how high he is.
Oh my God, it's insane because what do you say, 3 packs a day?
Yeah.
And I love that he's like, I had that one cigarette, I would have given all my clothes and all that. And then you see him dancing, he's got a cigarette in his mouth. He's playing soccer, he's got a cigarette in his mouth. He probably smoked a pack of cigarettes at that challenge.
Oh, he must have had tons. Yeah, I mean, because at one point he's like smoking just the butt of it. So yeah, he has God knows how many cigarettes. And what's funny about that is we have a Sari like, oh my gosh, this little girl looks like my niece. Oh my gosh, I miss my family so much. And then it cuts to Shane like, I need a freaking cigarette. Like it's a really good back and forth.
A nice contrast there. And this to me is probably one of the best rewards that's ever happened because not only do they get this reward where they go to the beach or they go to this village, they get to eat, they get the whole day there, and they know that the other tribe is going to tribal, and they don't even have to worry about tribal because they know the merge is coming.
Yeah. I any of those kind of rewards. I love the kids reward. I love the like bringing toys to kids and let them like and play with them all day. Like those are the best. And then on top of that, like you said, it's not just a reward. It's an immunity on top of it. And that's what they needed because they were falling apart.
They were. And it's crazy to me that tribe ends up winning. I mean, you have to think like Lamina had an entire puzzle piece lead, an entire one lead, and they still lost that challenge. They didn't even have a piece in for real when it ended. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, they blew a 3-1 lead on that one.
They really did. It was terrible, and it makes sense that Dan goes after that, but it's crazy.
It's a tough challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like once you get that first piece, it's easy. But yeah, this guy has like worked on rocket ships.
Yeah.
But
it should have been super easy for him. I mean, it shouldn't have been hard. Anyway, we haven't talked at all really about the first episode. And what I kind of wanted to say about this is you're at final 13 here. And so in last week's, we saw that the two tribes, they come together, or they swap into two tribes. Bruce goes to exile. Bruce then so now it's 7-on-7. Bruce gets to join Kasaya after Kasaya loses. And something I was thinking about is, in reality, Kasaya is at the tribe that loses that first challenge is almost at like an advantage. Not so much an advantage, but it doesn't hurt them at all to lose that challenge.
No, because you get the numbers right back.
Yeah, so really was Lamina won the first 4 challenges and they were even. Then Kasaya wins the next 4 or 5 challenges and they're up 2 people. And you think about it, and they both won. I think it was Lamina lost 3 immunities and Kasaya lost 2. Kasaya goes in up 6-4. So Kasaya is up 2 people, even though they're only really up 1 immunity. And that's such a big advantage to have in a game because, like, that first challenge you lose, you get rid of Melinda, who it didn't matter anyway. You get Bruce, who's way better, and that's it. Nothing hurts.
I'm glad you brought that up because in a lot of these episodes, like, Lamina is really, really downtrodden, and Austin is just like, we need something good to happen. We need something good to happen. And they go in the minority in the merge, but without really thinking, I'm like, wait a second, Lamina was winning a lot. And now they're down 2. It's crazy. Like it's relatively evenly matched when it comes to the challenges. Like Lamina winning a lot and then Kasaya winning a lot, but Kasaya still is far ahead by the time you're at the merge.
Yeah, which is crazy, and it's an insurmountable lead just because of how big they are or how tight they are. I mean, you had that one challenge where they're diving down to unlock the skulls, and Terry literally wins that challenge pretty much by himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, this just showed like what was to come when this post-merge hits. Like, nobody could beat Terry. Like, Terry was so insanely good at these challenges. He wins 5, he loses the last 2 or whatever. Like it's insane because he's got the idol. So then he finds the idol on top of all that. He's one of the most untouchable players in Survivor history because of how good he was at challenges. And what's crazy to me is you never see him play socially. And once again, this comes back to why I think Terry didn't get brought back, is because you never see a social game from him. Once that merge hits, it is literally he has to win every single challenge to get to the end. And he has his idol. He doesn't do anything to help his tribe. He tries a little bit, but none of it ever works. And you compare that to somebody like Colby, who also won 5 challenges, but Colby played a really strong social game with the people he needed to play with. He played a strong social game with Tina. He played a strong social game with Keith, even though Keith was just there. He played even a strong social game with Jerry. It ends up biting him in the ass at the end because he voted her out. But he played a better social game and actually was able to work people a little bit. Terry does none.
But I agree with that because we'll talk about Terry's social game in a couple episodes. But if we're talking heroes versus villains and versus favorites, you could make an argument that Terry is any of those 3 things, a favorite, a hero, or a villain. So what I'm saying is he could have fit in there. There was obviously just a tight bill because those are pretty much filled to the brim with the correct players.
Well, the problem was with heroes versus villains, there's nobody you can take off that heroes tribe. That's the problem. In terms of the men, you can't. Tom Westman says he wants to play again. They're going to put Tom Westman on every season.
Yeah,
Colby, Rupert. Exactly. You can't take anybody off.
Yeah, well, that's why that season was so damn good.
Yeah, fans versus favorites, I disagree because Fair Play, he was already out of the Fair Play was outside of the actual pool that they were looking for. They reached for Fair Play back to season 7 after saying they were only going to take people after All Stars, and. That's what really, I think, screwed Terry. It was him and James. James ultimately, I think, took Terry off. But really, I think that if you go all the way back, and even somebody like Penner, I loved Penner. Terry should have played before Penner. But they brought Penner back because Penner had the strategic game that they thought would cause some havoc. I don't think they thought Terry would cause any havoc. And it was mainly because he just never got to prove himself because he had no allies.
Yeah, okay, you bring up a good point because especially in Cook Islands, I didn't love Penner, so when he was brought back as a favorite, I was like, eh. And I grew to love him. I love him now.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from on the strategic versus physical because you have Ozzy, the physical, on favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to bring back Terry because you already have Ozzy. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like that's exactly it. And you don't need to bring back it's the same reason why has Judd never been pulled back in? You know what I mean? It's because right after him there was Shane, who if they're going to bring somebody back, it was going to be Shane before they brought back Judd. So why didn't they bring back Shane for 16? Because they brought back Fair Play. You don't need Shane and Fair Play on the same island.
That's what you think.
Well, I mean, I would love that. They should be the captains of tribes.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Okay.
Where were we? We were kind of going around episode 4. I know. Yeah, drink some water, Phil. Where else in episode 4? Oh, so they win the Casa del Charmin. And Phil, do you want to use this as an outhouse or as a wood house?
Can I be completely honest?
Please.
I thought that they were going to put the wood inside to keep it warm, but still allow each other to do their business in there. And
I feel like there's a way to do both.
I was really surprised they got as mad at Bobby as they did because they could store the wood in there. And I get it would smell, but that thing's so close to camp anyway. And wherever you're pooping, it doesn't matter. And these people, it's not like they're pooping like crazy unless you're Austin and Nick eating raw beans. But aside from that, it's not like these people are pooping all that much. So it's why not? You can store the wood on the floor part or next to the toilet. You're living in pretty crappy circumstances anyway. No pun intended. So why not? I don't get the anger at Bobby for this, but I also think that Bobby wouldn't have done it had he had an inkling of respect for these people, and I think he just had zero, so he didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get the anger towards Bobby, but again, it was just kind of okay, we're going to make this a wood thing, and also you can't poop in it, but Bobby just decides poop in it. It was a very quick decision.
And I love that he's just feel so much lighter. He's rubbing it in. He hated those people. He despised them. I
know. I need to look up some exit interviews of his.
I think that's why he became popular, is because he was so against that Casillas 6 that at the time everybody really hated. I mean, yeah, they're fun to watch, but nobody was rooting for them. And he was so against them. And I mean, Bobby has some pretty badass moments in this season when he's breaking the heads off those fish. That was insane. I mean,
that was awesome.
Don't get between Bobby and a knife. That would be
and we're talking about Terry the Challenge Beast. He wipes the floor with Terry on that.
Yeah, and Terry's not doing bad. Bobby's just insane.
Yeah, he's just that much better.
Yeah, that was insane. So
yeah, and then oh god.
Go ahead. All you. I've talked enough.
No, they have to drink your water. Yeah, they chop the fish and then they get to take it home, and then they just are like they don't have fire, so they have to eat that thing like sushi. And I wrote down, I cannot believe that Suri has never eaten sushi. That needs
I'm
to be
not surprised,
but that's surprising to me. She's from New Jersey. Like, there's sushi there.
No, that's true, but there's a lot of people who are like of that age. Sushi wasn't that popular. Like
it's like a hip millennial thing.
It is. It's like one of those things where it's like, I love eating sushi rolls, and it's like, cool, dude, we're gonna charge like $15 for them, and like they're totally not worth $15. So like, yeah, sure, we love it. Like, I don't think that like my parents
because it like fills me up a full meal. My parents aren't really into sushi.
My parents have never had it. I mean, they might have had it now, but they were never eating it like when they were growing up. Like, I
mean, they kind of were.
Sushi's pretentious.
My parents are very my parents are very ahead of their time. Almost said something jokingly bad on the internet. Mom and Dad, I love you.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know why. Anyways, back ignoring the sushi part. Shane takes that unfilleted fish and just shoves his face into it. That is horrifying.
Disgusting. It's disgusting.
That was horrifying.
Yeah, that was gross. I saw that and I was like, he doesn't even care. I mean, Shane's just at the point where like he's a monster.
I think he was just hoping there was a cigarette like somewhere in that dish.
Yeah, right. He was hoping that would give him the same effect. I mean, Shane is literally just like crazy. I mean, after Bobby goes, when he's laying in the shelter, just like whispering to Danielle, and like it. Like, Danielle's like, I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to do this. And, like, Shane just can't stop. And, like, you see when he gets the cigarette, he's already a different person. Like, he's instantly, when he's talking to Danielle, he's like, I owe you so much. I'm so sorry. And, like, he's being sincere about it. You see later in the game, like, when he's apologizing to Courtney or something, and then he starts screaming at her again. He's being so sincere in this moment. It's because he's finally himself again. And that might be another reason Shane never played again, is because they were actually worried that Shane would completely lose his mind and it wouldn't be worth it. Like, you know. I
think that was a huge reason, because Shane did go through some like pretty difficult times after this show. And so I think they were very smart to not bring him back. As much as it upsets us, I think it was the right call. Yeah, you make it like when Shane's yelling at Danielle, like we're not getting a ton of Danielle. Like she's pretty much just like Courtney's slightly less crazy sidekick. He is like whispering in her ear, and he's like driving her up a wall, and she goes, Shane, shut up. Like, just shut it down. And then another thing I thought was hilarious. So Cerie's telling Courtney the next morning, she's like, oh yeah, Shane wants you guys to release him from the alliance. And without missing a beat, Courtney goes, can I release him from the game?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
That's so funny. I loved that.
Well, and the reason I think Danielle is crazy is because she continues to side with Courtney. That's literally the only reason I think she's crazy.
Yeah,
because
it's like by association.
Because what ends up happening is Shane goes up to them and says, hey, can I release whatever? And Danielle's instantly like, yes, it's back. Goodbye. And then Courtney starts arguing with him about it. And it's like, why are you doing this? And for Danielle to then go the rest of the game working with these crazy people, it makes Danielle a little crazy, because she clearly didn't play as good of a game as Aris did. So, like, what's the point? Like, it's crazy that she would stick with Courtney, who can't keep her mouth shut. And after they just talked about, like, let's release him from the game, Courtney can't not tell Shane he's still making a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Danielle's like, I'm trying to make a scale of reasonableness, that's not a word, of that 6. And Danielle, like, kind of floats in the middle, because sometimes she is, like, very rational and like very normal, but she doesn't have the outbursts like Shane and Courtney do, so she doesn't seem as crazy. But because she is so heavily involved with Courtney, it's just like a guilty by association thing.
And yeah, and what's crazy to me is, like, out of all the people in this Cassius 6, Cirie comes back, and then Danielle is the second one to come back.
Well, Shane, like, as we just talked about, Shane's probably not going to come back. Bruce was medically evacuated. He was getting kind of old. Bruce wasn't going to come back. So
Courtney would have been a better villain than Danielle, to be completely honest.
But Danielle, I actually kind of liked her in Heroes vs. Villains.
She didn't do anything. She cries. I mean, that's the only thing I remember she does.
She also beats up Amanda on the hotel floor while Colby's watching.
And Colby's like over there, like rubbing lotion on his hands. Like, what a weird
I know. That's the most like confusing
weird
Survivor
that's
scene.
That's like the least Survivor scene. That's why, because it's just not Survivor.
It's so out of body. Like, they're in a room. First of all, they're sitting on a bed, and it's the most uncomfortable thing ever.
Yeah. So like Danielle, like I could have done without her coming back again, but it's like, that's like, to me, it's like second person they brought back from this season who I could name 6 people better.
But I think to your previous point about your conspiracy theory, Danielle can do that strategy game. I don't think Courtney could do that strategy.
No, she can't.
No.
My conspiracy theory makes a lot of sense.
Now that we're talking about it, it does. When you were first saying it, I was just like, I don't know where this is going.
Without Dan, there is no strategy the rest of this game because Dan's not there. Because Dan can be reasonable. Nobody else can be reasonable.
I mean, there's no strategy. Just because they're not siding with Terry doesn't mean there's no strategy.
But what I'm saying is okay, think about the next.
Those are just because they're not siding with them.
But to give everybody spoilers, think about the way this whole merge goes. There's no strategy because they really just want to get rid of Terry and they can't get rid of Terry.
But that requires them to eat themselves a lot earlier than they have to.
Sari is really the only one who plays strategically, and obviously that's why she comes back and everything. But they have to eat themselves. They don't have to eat themselves a lot earlier. They eat themselves one person earlier because Bruce ends up getting medevac before they even have to make a tough decision.
Well, but in any other season like this isn't the only season where there's a majority tribe that beats down the other tribe. And also, Sari had plenty of strategy.
Okay. So, are you saying that there's any strategy?
Do you want every single person in the season of Survivor to be heavily strategic?
I'm saying that the people had strategy. There's individual strategies going on here. Obviously, Sari is playing an incredible game the way she keeps it, and Aris is playing an incredible game. I'm saying in terms of big picture strategy.
You just said Aris is playing an incredible game.
Well, Aris controls them so well. I still think that he gets away with things that no other winner's ever gotten away with. That's all I'm saying. But Aris and Sari are playing. Yes. Well, Brian, that season's
he doesn't count.
That season's pretty much the same thing, except that season doesn't have a likable cast. This one does. But the thing is, Aris and Sari have their strategy going on. But I'm talking of an overall strategy to the season. Once Dan goes, there's no more strategy to the entirety of the season. It's like South Pacific, where that one tribe's just going to dwindle the other one down. And it's just okay, let's wait. There's no more can we pull over an Adam? Can we pull over, somebody to get rid of? Should we go to rocks? Should we do this? There's nothing going on like that because
I don't think it's going to happen in an early season like this.
Oh,
I think the idea wasn't really there.
Well, Australia it had happened. Australia, there's no overarching strategy in that one. Really, in Africa, there's no. It's Africa and Australia are good examples, I feel because once one tribe got the upper hand, the overall strategy for the season was gone. Then it was just about how are your main characters going to get themselves to the final 2. And that's really all it was. What's odd about this season is your main characters don't make the final 2.
But so I guess it just depends on what what the word strategy means to each person, because you just said how person X gets to the final 2. There's a strategy involved there. The overarching strategy, I don't really.
Here's kind of what I mean. There's because think about millennials versus Gen X. There was an alliance here, there was an alliance here, there was an alliance here, there was an alliance here. And those little alliances are overall trying to maneuver their way through the other alliances. So I would call that the season strategy of how was Adam going to get to the Adam and Hannah and David, how were they going to navigate this season? How was David and Jessica going to navigate? There's more little things going on, whereas the Kasaya 6 is the Kasaya 6. It's them versus Lamina. And then after that, it's just kind of Aris and Sari are the only ones who really knew what the hell they were doing. So that's the individual strategy portion is they got to the point they needed to get to with the people they needed to get there with.
Okay, so I agree with that, but I just can't compare season 12 to season 33 in terms of strategy.
Well, that's fine, but the thing is this one, I would compare it mostly to an Australia or an Africa, where Africa is almost identical, where it's 6-4 going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in Africa, they get rid of Clarence first, and then it's 5-4, and then they just dwindle them down until there's nothing left. It's very much the same thing in this season, where they just get to the point where okay, now we have to eat our own, but exactly what the overall strategy of the people in majority is for the entirety.
I guess the reason I'm okay with it on this season is because of how much I like the cast. Because you compared it to South Pacific, and I can't watch South Pacific. I would watch this 1,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. The cast is so good, but that's just what gets me is Danielle was the second person to return, and you hit it on the head because she can strategize. But and they didn't think Courtney could, and whatever. But like Danielle was the second one. The alarms are going off.
Alarms are going off. Yep. That conversation needs to be changed.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think I don't know. I just feel like it's so weird to me because this is just a cast loaded.
I don't know. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't feel weird to me just by how we break out the Kasaya 6, but I kind of brought it up earlier.
But it's even more than just the Kasaya 6. I mean, you have other people going on. You have Austin and all that.
But with the way that I just threw my pen, and by threw I mean dropped. But the way the boot order happened, we already know of the Kasaya 6. Cerie's going to come back. Aris is going to come back. Bruce is not going to come back, and Shane's not going to come back. Why would they bring Courtney back when they can bring Danielle back? And they're not going to bring Nick and Austin and Dan back. So that Danielle is like a naturally.
Yeah.
But she was just kind of the natural progression of things.
Yeah, but they brought back Danielle even before they brought back Aris, and they brought back Danielle before they brought back Terry, which I don't think is the natural progression. Like, it's just kind of like.
But it is because we just said we didn't know where we would put Terry.
Yeah, and Aris, I guess, doesn't fit in anything because he won a season and they weren't going to bring him back on Heroes versus Villains because he wasn't distinctly one or the other. Although I would say Aris is more of a villain winner. Just because of, I think, the way that he's perceived. And, like, you see it as the season goes on where, like, you have Terry, the old guy who you're supposed to be rooting for, versus Aris, the young, arrogant guy. I'm going to keep saying arrogant, but you see it as the season goes on where they call each other out, like, on the same level. And it takes a certain amount of arrogance to stand up to this 50-year-old whatever Navy fighter pilot. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it takes a certain level of arrogance. A lot of people that age might not do it.
See, but if you call it arrogance against standing up against 50-something-year-old guy, wouldn't that be confidence? That's how I would interpret it.
But I feel like he's so overly confident, like in his fire thing. Like, I feel like that's like an arrogant move.
That's not an arrogant thing. That's his weird, like, yoga thing.
I just think it's a weird yoga thing, but like to bring that up, like within like the first couple days of knowing people, and just be
don't see how that is arrogant.
I think that's arrogant. Like,
most people would
even coach some of those things in for a little bit before he started being like, "Hey guys."
But that's just like I wouldn't call that arrogance. That's him just like projecting his personality onto them, which is his weird yoga stuff.
It didn't seem like he was kidding.
Well, because he wasn't. That's what's crazy. That's not arrogant. It's crazy.
I will just say I thought Aris in Blood versus Water was way better than Aris in Panama.
Yeah, Blood versus Water, he was awesome.
I thought he was way better. That's all. Anyway, I'm still okay with Aris winning this season. I'm saying it how I see it. If we were talking about the season as it was going on, I would be like, wow, there's no way Aris wins. Like maybe because he's a little bit level-headed, but there is no way. Let's see here. So let's just do this.
We've kind of bopped around, but I feel like
are we both logged in as the Survivor specialist right now? I think we are. Well, do you want to do some comments then? This way we can just because I mean we're almost at an hour anyway, so we might as well just do some comments, bounce around a little bit.
You want to do YouTube or Twitter first?
Let's do Twitter first. We'll start with Ice X, who says, again, Cirie kills in team challenges, in confessionals, and focusing the target on somebody else. She is so good, actually shockingly good in the challenges in this season. It's really crazy.
Really, yeah. And you don't notice, I feel like I'm only noticing it now because I've seen Cirie play 4 times, and I'm very aware of how she performs in challenges.
Yes, exactly. And one of the best Cirie moments, I thought, was when it was called out that Danielle doesn't do anything. And they're like, Cirie, what do you think? And Cirie's like, I should have just walked away. And she's like, well, she didn't do as much as everybody else. Like, I thought that was so good because it's just like really like Cirie's whole mentality of like, as long as it's not me that's getting the heat, like, sure, yeah, she sucks. Like, whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. And oh my gosh, I didn't know how much Cirie giggled this season. This is like, if I was making a drink game, it would be, so much giggling when there's no giggling needed. Anyways. Yeah. So the next comment's aimed towards you, so you take it.
Yeah, it's just Phil, your sister and I share a birthday along with Mick Jagger, Stanley Kubrick, Helen Mirren, Kevin Spacey, and many others.
It's a solid crew.
Happy birthday to Ice X. I just love Kevin Spacey's my favorite actor and Kubrick's my favorite director. So when I found out that they were both born the same day as my sister, like my sister is definitely like third fiddle on that day. And she knows it. She's just never going to be one or two. Like it's just not going to happen.
I mean, as long as she knows, right?
Yeah, and I tell her straight up. I think I posted on her Facebook wall one year to like just remind her, like Kevin Spacey and Stanley, you got a lot to live up to. And then it's Mick Jagger and Helen Mirren, like Ice X, man. I'm sure you're doing great, but my sister, she's got a lot of work cut out for her.
Well, maybe Isaacs can be number 6 on the list, and your sister can be number 7.
There you go. Exactly.
You know,
my sister doesn't watch these damn podcasts, so she might be.
Do you know who does watch these podcasts? Isaacs, number 6.
I know. And Mick Jagger.
Isaacs, again, he has. Tell your friends, Mick Jagger watches this podcast. Yeah, Isaacs, you always have really good questions. I really appreciate it. And that being said, Isaacs asks, why is Bobdawg on the Survivor Panama DVD cover? Phil,
here's what I'll say. This is my whole thought behind it. Bobdawg gained a lot of notoriety after the game. He was a big fan. He stayed active in a time where it was hard for people to stay active in the community. He was a huge fan of the game. And I honestly think they didn't want to put all of the Kasaya 6 minus Bruce on the cover. So I think that might have had something to do with it, as weird as that sounds. I think they left off Bruce and Courtney both and put in Bobdawg, who kind of stood up against them. This is also around a time when DVDs started being released where they kind of threw you off with who was on the covers. Because I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Thailand and Panama came out around the same time on DVD because they weren't releasing them 2 seasons at a time like they do now. And I think they came out around the same time. And if you look at the Thailand cover, Gandia and Rob are both on that cover. So this was kind of around the time where it was kind of a crapshoot.
Also, Gandhi and Rob are one of the 2 of the few people I can name from Thailand.
All that also.
But yeah, happens. They're also still like, ooh, what the heck? That's a good theory with Bobdawg. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. Gamer Girl says, who do you think is the calm in Kasaya's storm? I think it's Suri and Aris. I think Aris is waking up. It's 100% Aris. I mean, he still says things that I think he gets away with. But like Suri, I wouldn't consider the calm there because Suri is just so far in the background. She's almost not in that alliance. Yeah, she's just not in that alliance. She wants that alliance. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like she's a calm person, but she's I mean, she told Courtney what Shane said to Danielle. Like that, she would have found out anyways, but that came from Cerise's mouth. So Cerise's stirring the pot. She's just doing it calmly.
Exactly. But I wouldn't consider her really. I'd consider her the 6th member of the Kasaya 6. Aris is so in that group. He's in the minority alliance, or he's in the majority alliance within the majority alliance, which Suri is not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Gamer Girl again. Okay, when Austin went to go throw up, it was daytime, and when he came back, it was nighttime. Was he really gone for that long?
Austin was nonstop throwing up and pooping. That was insane.
I think it was that bad.
Yeah, him and Nick were hurting.
Yeah, he looked not right afterwards.
Dan and Sally were probably so grateful they didn't eat more. Gamer Girl says, what's the weird tribal council voting music in episode 6? It's because Dan was a fan favorite. It was like a respect thing. Like that tribal council is one of the most unique tribal councils. And it is all because Dan is going. And up until this point, we hadn't really seen a tribal where like we hadn't been led to believe it could be someone else. Like we were straight up told like Dan is going home tonight. It's not between anybody else. It's just going to be Dan. And it's a very interesting thing because that really hadn't happened up to this point. And because Dan was so well liked, and because I honestly think the producers and stuff just completely respected him, they gave him like a big send off. Yeah.
And when they stood up and saluted him afterwards,
so good. It's so corny. I love it.
It was so corny. Gamer Girl, who else wanted to tell Nick he was fishing in the wrong place in the water? I facepalmed. Was he fishing in the wrong place?
I mean, they never caught fish, so we'll just say yes.
I mean, overall, yes, he was fishing in the wrong place.
Yeah. Another thing I want to ask, has a tribe ever been more dependent on one person than Lamina was on Terry?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. There might have been, but this one's pretty glaringly obvious. They would just like, when Terry's in exile, they were like, what do we do? Yeah. Like they were so lost.
And this is what's crazy about this move to send Terry and what's so crazy about the super idol being out on exile. You don't know whether it's actually a good move or not for Kasaya to send Terry because you know somebody like Terry who's so good at stuff and has become, it's apparent that he's so good at stuff, even from an outsider's perspective, and some of those people have played with him. Is it really a good move to send that guy to exile where he can find a get-out-of-jail-free card? Yes, you're weakening the other tribe, and it totally worked because it gave them the numbers advantage, but it also allows Terry to just run this game until the final 3.
I don't know if I'd call it running the game, but yeah, I mean, it keeps him safe until the final 3.
He doesn't decide who goes home. But I think that he runs the game because he's always in their mind and they can't do anything about it. They can't get rid of him. Like, no matter what, they have to have him lose.
I feel like See, to me, that kind of contradicts itself. Like, runs the game, but is not like a part of who goes home. To me, those are very different. But I think sending Terry to exile, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing.
Yeah, and it worked out a little bit, but it weakened that tribe. Enough for them, it worked out enough because, like I said, had they not done it, I don't think Lamina loses. I think they go in even 5-5 because I think they win one of those other challenges because they got their weakest when Terry was gone. And I think that they win one of those other challenges. They go in 5-5, and I'm telling you, I think they are tighter. Even with Sally, I think that group of 5 is tighter than the other 5 at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Giovanni Oriana, does Courtney have a crush on Shane? Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, there's some angry sexual tension between the two of them.
They should have been married.
Courtney's actually married. Courtney, I actually super creepily looked her up on Facebook today, and she is married with a kid.
Good stalking, Alexa. Good job.
Yeah, I don't know what. Courtney was like, when I watched Panama, Courtney was like my favorite. I loved Courtney. So I have some weird obsession with her. And
this is why I'm glad I didn't know 12-year-old Alexa. That's all I'm going to say. You sound awful.
I loved it. She's good TV.
Sort of. Tyler Bellmeyer asks, how's the org going? I was just going to throw it out there. The org is at its final 4. Sorry, you have like a whole like parade going on behind you. The org is in the final 4. It's an all-female final 4. It went pretty well. Actually, it was kind of a crapshoot before the merge because like people weren't showing up and stuff, even though you give them warning and they say they're going to be there because you tell them the time and like you told them it was going to be like a commitment, but you knew that was going to happen. And now we're at the final 4, and like the last like 3 tribal councils, minus the one where the person voted themselves out because they had shut up 3 times. The other ones, like the one last night was like absolutely insane, like to the point where I was like, I kind of wish that was on TV, where like somebody like played an idol too late, totally screwed them, the person. They would have gotten that person out, and then that person ended up tied with somebody else. It was like a complete mess, and I was sitting there like, wow. Like only if that was on the show. Like that was just such a crapshoot. So it's been fun. It's definitely not Alexa. Blake has been the MVP for sure. He's been carrying that thing on his damn back. So anybody who's playing, Blake is MVP. That's all you need to know.
His back hurts from carrying the team.
He has carried the entire thing.
Giovanni Oriana, is the Kasaya 6 the most likable, unlikable tribe in history?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would say yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You don't want to root for them, but you don't want them to lose.
Yeah, it's like a car crash. You can't look away.
Yeah.
But you actually like watching it.
Larry Miller, is Aris so arrogant that it made Shireen target his brother because he was mean to Melinda?
Was this okay, Larry Miller? If you're listening,
Alexa, you cut out for the question. Say that again. You cut out.
How about now? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Larry Miller, if you're listening.
Larry Miller, if you're listening. Thanks, Phil. When you typed Shireen, did you do that because Debbie doesn't know that her name is Sari? Because that is hilarious. Because you know how Debbie called her Shireen like for the first like 3 weeks they were out there?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. That's what I think. And I think
is Aris so arrogant that it made Shireen target his brother because he was mean to Melinda? I don't know. There's a lot of layers there.
There's a lot going on there.
But it would
I don't
fit.
know. We'll have to ask Shireen.
Yeah. Anyway, next one. Giovanni Rihanna, in my opinion, Lamina is boring. It's like watching paint dry and watching grass grow. Do you agree? Clearly, no.
No, I don't. Here's the thing. Like,
I don't agree at all.
Like, I get why people think that they're boring, but they are only boring in comparison to Kasaya. They're likable. Like, they're all like decent human beings. You don't get a lot of those in a tribe. So I don't think they're boring. I feel like the Lamina being boring has just become this like snowball effect of everyone's saying that they're
everybody saw it on Reddit.
They're not that boring.
Yeah, it was on Reddit.
And now that's all they talk about.
Yeah.
It's a hive mind. Are Giovanni Oriana, are the new Kasaya tribe the Survivor equivalent of the Seinfeld cast? You always want to compare Survivor to Seinfeld.
There will never be a Seinfeld.
No, there's not. No.
And Giovanni also says, "Is Bobdawg the poor man's Rory? I finished my Vanuatu rewatch, and Rory is funny. They are two completely different characters. They are not the same.
Yeah, they're very, very different.
Rory couldn't, get his way out of a shoebox, and here's Bobdawg cutting fish's heads off in one go. And no, they're not the same at all. Oh, they both have a very hard time keeping their mouths shut when they hate people.
True. I think this might be our last Twitter comment. Giovanni, again, yes. Did Shane want to release his son's name because of what happened with Twyla and Vanuatu? I don't think so. Did he even watch Vanuatu? I feel like he's so respectful of his son, and he's so that's something that means so much to him that I don't think it had anything to do
That's
with
all it is.
Season.
He just feels like he's a bad person if he doesn't take it back and betrays them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. Mr. Brightside, is it possible for you guys to have Suri, Terry, Austin, or Shane on this podcast? I mean,
please.
I please, but I doubt it. I mean, that would be nice. That would be
amazing. If we could get one of those, that'd be awesome.
Right? One of those 4. I would want Austin because I think people would be so confused that we got Austin, but I would love to hear Austin.
That would actually be really great. What do we think he's doing right now? That would be cool.
He's John Grisham.
I'm not going to do – that was hilarious. I really liked that. I'm not going to do Giovanni Orianas because we just did that exact question. Son of Sella, all caps. Yes, Danny Astronaut, love. We need more of this in the world. Love him. 2 hearts.
Plenty of love.
Lots.
I might like him too much. The Elements official. I love this season. One of my favorites. Other than the obvious people to like, Cerise, Shane, etc. I always find myself liking Ruth Marie for some reason. Gets it's because she's such an underdog. It's fun.
I have a weird affinity for her, and I can't figure out why.
I don't really have the affinity, but I like watching people like Dan and Ruth Marie, who are clearly outsiders on most seasons, like Bond, and then neither of them make it anyway. But it's always nice to see those people almost in a power position.
Yeah, and they had a thing going for a minute.
Yeah, and then that ended abruptly.
Yeah.
It's your turn, Alexa.
This was it. Abby McHenry. I always love it when Alexa describes things as bananas. All right, she didn't call me. Thank you. I never noticed it until you pointed it out, so now I'm exceptionally aware of it.
Yeah, and Alexa gets very self-conscious when you call her out for saying the same thing over and over again. I remember one of the first podcasts I did with Alexa instead of Will, my mom was so mad. She just keeps agreeing with you. She just keeps saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Alexa changed.
No, I kept saying, and I started listening to myself, and I realized that was my tick, for lack of a better term, when I was nervous, because I got camera shy when I first started doing this.
Yeah.
And now I don't care.
There you go. That's how it should be. Arch13, here's my biggest gripe with last podcast. I know Phil doesn't like when things make sense, but it was only the Tina vote that didn't make sense. Glenda's made sense because she was in the minority, and Misty's made sense because they perceived her as the weakest. Misty's, I will never...
That is not why they got rid of Misty.
Yeah, I will never rescind that Misty's made no sense, because Misty's totally made Sally never trust them. You ostracize somebody way too quickly, and you see what happens when you ostracize somebody, make it so blatantly obvious, and then a crazy twist happens. They ostracized her for no reason.
They also didn't think that Misty was the weakest. I just love the sentence, Phil doesn't like when things make sense.
Yeah, I don't.
Because that's, whatever. Okay, I'll do it again. Gamer Girl, I think Bobdawg, just because we kind of already talked about this, I think Bobdawg's on the cover of the DVD because he has a strong online fan base, like you said, and goes to a lot of Survivor conventions and finales. That's a future off-season podcast you could do, Phil and Alexa. People who somehow made the DVD box set covers.
That would be a fun box set covers. That would be a fun kill time thing. There's a couple in there that are pretty fun. Gamer Girl, I hated Courtney the first time around, but this time around I gave her MVP for the first episode, just something I'm used to doing. I wish she had ended up on Lamina so that she could be the same awesome person she was in episode 1. Shane will do that to you.
Yeah, you wonder what Courtney would be like if she, Danielle, Misty, and Sally, because maybe Misty and Sally would have calmed her down. I think everyone's insanity in the Kasaya 6 also had a lot to do with the perfect storm.
A lot of it comes from Shane because it's really hard when it's so aggressive in your face at all times to keep it out when you're hungry and you're in a bad situation. Then you have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel you.
Dennis O'Connell, Alexa.
Oh, there we go. I didn't know if it was my team. Dennis O'Connell. Hey, guys. Can't wait to see your opinions on the BS Final Challenge. 12 years and it still pisses me off.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain 100%.
I am excited.
I hate that challenge
Let's
so
do
much.
it.
I still have nightmares. Sally11395, do you think Suri is still afraid of leaves, or do you think she turned over a new leaf?
Boo.
Wow. Oh, that's okay. I'm down.
That was
it.
so. The more I boo it upon, the more I like it.
That's what that means.
Vladimir, Missy is the most beautiful contestant to ever play Survivor. With or without the bug bites, Vladimir? I need to know.
Yeah, with the bug bites. It's just so hot. Arg says OP means. Yeah. Arg says OP means overpowered. We needed to know that. We didn't know that last time.
Yeah, that's actually really good to know. We're like we're getting old.
Yeah, seriously. Ryan Chan. Sorry, I'm jumping you.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it might have been good for Suri to vote for Bruce as opposed to Bobdawg in the 5th Tribal Council? I know both Suri and Bobdawg were pretty tight. That was randomly weird tribal when it came to voting. That was a 3-2-1-1 Tribal Council vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that Bobdawg would have flipped. So I think it's the right move. But it's crazy to me that it was a 3-2-1-1 and people were so all over the place afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think, like you said, it wouldn't have been a good move for her because he would have flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Relevant. Ethan Hazel. Have you guys ever auditioned or ever thought of auditioning for the show? Would love to see a Phil and Alexa alliance. Phil and Alexa drove to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania the week before Christmas this past year, sat on the floor for 6 hours and auditioned, and no one has called us.
Nobody called us. I'm waiting for the fans versus favorites thing when the people we interviewed tried to put on the favorites tribe, and then they're like, you should put Phil or Alexa on the fans tribe.
And maybe they would have actually picked 2 fans. That would have been pretty big.
Right? And they could, it would be insane. 1 guy and 1 girl. What? Not just like.
What a concept.
In the 2 seasons of fans versus favorites, Eric Reichenbach, I still feel like is the only fan we've actually seen on the show.
Oh my God, yeah.
And maybe Tracy. But anyway, go ahead.
That's all I got.
Oh, no, there's more. Gamer Girl. Like Guatemala, Panama showed us an alternate intro that I didn't know existed. Why couldn't they show this intro for episodes 2 or 3? The theory is that they didn't have it ready for episodes 2 or 3. As for why they didn't show it for episode 5, I think they forgot. Who the hell knows? They really stopped doing a lot. No, they just stopped doing like a lot of stuff around this time. They started experimenting, and I think they were just even confused as to what was important and what wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, good theory. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer.
Yeah. Gamer Girl, I understand why Gary would want to keep the fact that he was a quarterback a secret, but why would Dan want to keep the fact that he was an astronaut a secret? Dan was doing it more as a trust thing.
Yeah, that was the one thing I never understood about Dan. Like, I don't know. I don't love how he framed it. Like, I don't know. I always thought that was just a little weird to me. That always just rubbed me weirdly.
I don't think it's weird because think about how many people actually fly in space. It's like none. Like there's like nobody. No. And what I think this was more was like he was telling everybody he worked for NASA. I think his way of finding out who he could trust was to tell them, look, I'm an astronaut. Like he told Terry, and he wanted to see if Terry would say it to anybody else. It was a trust thing because if somebody finds out somebody's an astronaut, they want to talk about it all the time. So had Terry gone and said it to somebody else, it would have come up at some point because like who the hell's ever talked to an astronaut? Like they were so in awe of him being an astronaut. So I really think it was a trust thing to see if people were going behind his back.
Maybe. I don't know. He never said that. So you're probably right. I just like, he never gave any context to why he things. So that I think that's why I was just like confused. But no, I know it's a big, I mean, I would love to be an astronaut. Like I know it's a big deal. I just thought it was odd the way that it was said.
Mm-hmm. We're also only seeing
didn't bother me.
Where he's probably at his most arrogant and heroic. So I can't hear.
You tried to make a joke. You tried to make a joke there, but it kind of fell flat.
I mean, I couldn't hear what you said, so you fell flat. Which is perfect.
The joke that you tried to make fell flat.
I didn't tell a joke.
That being said, I'm good on comments.
I didn't tell a joke.
Cutting now. I'm losing my internet's losing.
Alexa's internet's gone. Okay, I'm good. So we'll be back next Wednesday with 7 through 9.
Yeah, we'll be back. We will be back next Wednesday. We won't keep doing Thursdays. This was a one-time thing. Yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday around the same time doing episodes 7 through 9. We're going to go through the merge and we'll talk about that. In the meantime, leave a comment on this video for us to talk about it. next week. Give us a tweet, give us a follow, give us a like, tell your friends. And we are just 2 months away from Healers versus Hustlers, which I'll never get used to saying.
Is it actually exactly 2 months?
I think we're like a little less than 2 months. I think it was like 26.
Today's the 27th.
Yeah, yesterday was 2 months, allegedly.
Okay, that's dope.
So,
all right.
Yeah, in the meantime, hit us up. We'll be around.
See you Wednesday.